Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Rami.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you doing, Doctor?
I'm doing good. I'm just barely finishing my iftar, so I thought I'll just
same thing on our end too. I completely
mute
understand.
myself and maybe stop the video so you don't hear all the unnecessary sounds.
All right.
We'll start, inshallah, in just a few minutes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa
Wa alaikum
barakatuh.
assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allah, how are you all doing?
Alhamdulillah, doing well. How are you doing?
Mashallah. I didn't have the link. They sent it to you, but they didn't send it to me, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
I just got the link, alhamdulillah.
Mashallah, mashallah. I think basically it's almost 9:03, so we can go ahead and start the program.
Bismillah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Hasnain Zaidi, and I am representing Islamic Center of Zahra. Therefore, on behalf of ICZ Board of Trustees, I welcome respected scholars of today's Intrafaith session, namely Sheikh Ramio Nsour. He's a director of MCC East Bay. Dr. Rania Awaad. She is also serving MCC East Bay community. And Maulana Seyed Hadi Yassin. He is a resident scholar of Islamic Center of Zahra and our today's program coordinator, Dr. Ejaz Naqvi. He is a board member of NCIC, Northern California Islamic Council. I would like to thank all participants, especially Sheikh Ramio Nsour and Dr. Rania Awaad, for their willingness to participate and contribute toward this noble cause of unity among Muslims. Inshallah, this interfaith session will be very informative and worthwhile for myself and all the viewers who are watching online. Now I'm going to officially start the program with the recitation of Quran, and then Dr. Ejaz will be taking from there. Allahumma salli ala. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر صدق الله العلي العظيم. Over to Brother Ejaz.
Thank you, Brother Hasnain, and thank you all once again. It is a distinct pleasure to be participating and coordinating this effort again. So just to let you know, for those of you who may not have attended the previous programs, this is a byproduct of the annual Muslim Unity event that was sponsored by NCIC, the Northern California Islamic Council, and I chair their Intrafaith Committee. We had our first event in 2018 at Sabah Islamic Center in San Jose that was attended by over 500 people and representing multiple Islamic centers across the Bay Area. And then the purpose was basically just very simple, which was to bring the Muslim Ummah together, and more specifically Shias and Sunnis together, and to promote harmony and understanding. And one of our goals was to also promote this at a sub-regional level. And so we asked many masajid to start to dialogue among each other. So last year, Islamic Center of Zara and Cinnamon Valley Islamic Center, we joined hands and we had a small gathering at a restaurant in Pleasanton. And alhamdulillah, it was a very successful event and many ideas came from that program. And alhamdulillah, this year we have added MCC East Bay. And obviously we would have loved to have shared this iftar in person, but I'm glad that we have at least found a way to still celebrate this iftar together virtually. So let me go over the format for today's program. So we'll have individual speeches today by our three panelists. First, it will be Sheikh Ramio Nsour, then Dr. Rania Awaad, and then Maulana Syed Hadi Yassin. So each speech will be about 10 minutes long. And there will be question and answers, but we will reserve these question and answer towards the end. So once the session ends in about 30 minutes, then we'll open it up for question and answers, and followed by in action items. So we will pose some questions to you, the audience, as to what you would like to do or you're planning to do as a result of tonight's program to promote harmony and understanding between our Muslim Ummah. So I will stop here, and before I go any further, I would like to point out the question, if you have any, please write it down and send it to this number that's displayed on your screen. That's 209-221-6801. And I will receive those questions, and if it is addressed to a specific panelist, please mention it. Otherwise, I'll use my judgment to ask the panelists. So without further ado, Sheikh Rami, you're first.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me and having me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And to begin, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. One of the things that I really appreciate about this type of platform of the intrafaith dialogue and to build, as you said, to build harmony and understanding. And I think those two are very key. And it goes in line with what I wanted to focus on tonight, which is there's a saying, "Men jahila shay'an adah." Whoever is ignorant of something, he becomes the enemy of that thing. So the idea behind that is that the more understanding we have, not only of others, but even of ourselves, the more harmony that we can have. So as long as we're working to build understanding and to increase people's knowledge, we can have that harmony. And so that's really what I see as the benefit of these type of interfaith discussions, because ultimately amongst the ummah, between the people of the Sunni Muslims and the Shia Muslims, there are differences. There's no doubt about that. There are theological differences, there are aqidah differences, there's fiqh differences, but there's also a lot of similarities. In fact, the majority of what makes us each of our communities who we are, we're the majority of that, we're similar in that. But unfortunately, it's those small, a few items that really causes people, and most of the time their misunderstanding of it, and I'm going to give some examples to bringing them apart. So I want to start with a story. When I was in the Muslim Students Association, the MSA, in community college in Ohlone, over here in Fremont. This is, I'm going to now show my age, but it's about over about 20 years ago. Well, if you think of like the Muslim Student Association, this is especially important for the youth when they go to high school and they start really formulating their identity, and also in college, and they have a Muslim Students Association or MSU or MSA, Muslim Students Union. It's Muslim. It doesn't make a distinguish between Sunni Muslim or Shia Muslim. It's Muslim. And the way people look at us, they look at us as Muslim. They can't make the difference. They don't understand the distinctions between the various communities. And so it's very important for us to make sure that we're understanding each other, and that we transfer this understanding to our children, so that when they go into situations like a high school MSA or a college MSA, there's some there's some more understanding. So to give you a story to illustrate how a small misunderstanding can actually cause this enmity. You know, I said, "Man jahila shay'an ada," whoever is ignorant of a thing becomes its enemy. So what they did at the library, and I'm sure many of you have seen these, where they have displays to show the various cultures. You can go to your local public library, you can go to a college or university library, and they'll have displays, and it switches. Sometimes it's the African-American students will make a display, the Mexican-American students will make a display, and then they give the Muslim students time to make a display. So we were there, and our MSA took this, it was either 2 weeks or a month that they were giving the display. I can't remember exactly. And so everybody brought something from the students, brought something from home. And so, you know, there was a janamaz, there was a mushaf, there was maybe some tasbih, prayer rugs, prayer beads, and so forth. And then one student came to the community, to the MSA. He was part of the MSA. In fact, he and I were very, very good friends. And he was from the Shia community, and I, of course, was from the Sunni community. And so when he came with, he wanted to display something in the display case as well. And it was a poster of some of the sayings of Imam Ali, alayhi salam. And it actually said after each saying, alayhi salam. Now, if you're familiar, you know, for the people in the Sunni community, normally what is said after the name of a Sahaba or a companion of the Prophet is radiyallahu anhu, or in the case of Imam Ali, sometimes karramallahu wajhu, may Allah ennoble his face, because he never, even as a child, even before he took his shahada, never prostrated to any of the idols, unlike some of the other early Muslims who became Muslim. They may have prostrated as idols, but normally they don't say alayhi salam. And so the Muslim Students Association, because they saw this poster with Imam Ali's saying, and it said alayhi salam, alayhi salam, alayhi salam, and they never knew this from their culture. And I say culture because none of them really had a serious studying of even of their own tradition, even of their Sunni tradition. So it was placed in the case, and then some of the students in the MSA actually, some of the Sunni students complained, and then it was removed from the case. Now I want you to take a moment to think about that student as he's coming, and he was the only Shia member of the MSA. How did it make him feel? And I'm speaking as well to any of the viewers from the Sunni community, but as well from the Shia community, to remind you that if you have a minority amongst your community, you have to also think about what are their feelings, and what if you're the majority in any case. And so if these young Muslims in the MSA, myself included at that time, if we had reached out to some of to our scholars and we said, is this an issue? They would have said, of course not. Even if you look in Imam al-Bukhari's collection, he says, Ali alayhi salam. So even amongst the Sunni tradition, you have some of the people who use that. And so unfortunately, it was a misunderstanding that caused them to have enmity. He says, no, we don't want that poster. And these are the posters of, this is Ali, this is Haydar, this is the day. Today was the 17th day of Ramadan. Today was Badr. I know some people, we celebrated Mother's Day, but we were also celebrating Badr. And what happened on the day of Badr? This was the day that Haydar went out, and he was one of the Abtal, one of the heroes of the Muslims who fought on the day of Badr, and was a hero at that time, and a hero even before that. He was a hero at the time of Hijrah. So this amazing hero, and now his sayings are removed from that display case. So this is, and that could cause enmity, you know. And it's interesting, later on, I reconnected with my friend who had brought this poster. we met at a halal restaurant. So again, it's the things that join us. Being, we all eat zabiha meat. We all face the same qibla. We all read the in fact, in one of the Sunni texts, it says, "Man akala dhabihatana wa istaqbala qiblatana." Those two things, that if they eat the same dhabiha meat, the same slaughtered meat, and they face the qibla, those are Muslims, and we hold fast together with those Muslims. So I met him at a halal restaurant. We reconnected. And it turned out he had actually not only studied, but he actually looked into his family's lineage. And I, at the time, had studied, and I also looked into my family's lineage. And it turns out, because in college, we were very close friends. And I didn't know the reason, but then once I found out, now I knew. He turned out to be a Husseini, and I turned out to be a Hassani. And it was that commonality. And this was one, there's a saying of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that أَدِّبُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ عَلَى ثَلَاثِ خِصَالٍ. Teach your children to have three characteristics: قراءة القرآن, حب نبيكم وحب آل بيته وقراءة القرآن. Recitation of the Quran, love of the Prophet, love of his family, and recitation of the Quran. And there was a scholar in Egypt, Sheikh Salih al-Ja'fari, who's also from the lineage of Imam Zain al-Abidin. And so he used to focus all of his general lectures to the general publics on these three topics. He said, we don't need, and he's in a country in Egypt that was predominantly Sunni. He's saying even in that country, because there are some theological differences even amongst the Sunnis, he said, let's not get into all of the theological debates and the fiqh debates. Let's just focus on these three things. And in these three things, we can build unity. Love of the Prophet, we all agree on. Love of his family, we all agree on. And recitation of the Quran. And I'll end on this, but the time that I got to meet Syed Hasnain, one of the board members from ICZ, was at an MCC Intrafaith discussion between the two youth groups, the youth group of MCC and the youth group of ICZ. And it was very interesting that some of the same exact points that I had chosen to talk about in my speech, he had spoken about as well. And we had both independently decided to focus on one ayah, which is وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold fast together by the rope of Allah, and do not differ amongst yourselves. And what's that rope? That's the Quran. And that's really what holds us together. And this is the month of Quran. So again, I'm not saying there aren't things that are differences, and we can discuss those. But even when we want to discuss those, think about it. If you want to discuss a difference with your friend, think of how that will turn out. But if you discuss a difference with somebody who you consider an enemy, think of how that turns out, or somebody you don't like. So first we have to build that friendship and that harmony so that then we can have those discussions. But even some of those discussions should be had by the scholars, because two things: the scholars will, they will have the ilm to be able to have that hiwar, that discussion, and B, they will have the adab. They will have the etiquette to be able to have that discussion. And if the general public witness that, and they see the scholarship of both sides discussing matters that maybe we differ on very differently, but we're discussing based on ilm and on adab, on etiquette and nice, being nice with each other, it will change the course of the discussion. And I'll end on this. Another example. And this was one of the examples that, sometimes people see me, I follow the Maliki school of thought. And one of Imam Malik's teachers was Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. And one of the things Imam Malik found in Medina was that people pray with their hands at their side. The other thing that Imam Malik also would do is, he said it was recommended to prostrate on something that's natural. So sometimes when people come in Sunni Muslims and say, why do they prostrate? Why do the Shia Muslims prostrate on that clay, the piece of clay? I say, what's the big deal? I said, first of all, one of the Sunni imams said it's better to prostrate, it's sunnah to prostrate on something natural, because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never prostrated on something other than natural, something from the earth. So what's the big deal? Oh, it's from Karbala. Again, what's the big deal? Because Karbala is a place that's it's important for us to know, because that was a day of sadness even for us. And if somebody takes something from what we consider to be a land that had blessed people walk upon them, this was Imam Hussein and his family, and they walked upon that land. If they want to take that for tabarruk and gaining blessings is also something from our tradition. So where's that? Let's move those aside, because that's not where we have a difference. Oh, they pray with the hands at the side. Well, I pray with my hands at my side. That's not a main issue. So if I find that the majority of what people differ on, if we look into the actual what's actually behind that, we can find this is not something that's something to differ on. And I'll end on this example. I was in Detroit, Michigan one time. My family's from Michigan, and I was sitting at a table, and there's a large, of course, there's a large Shia and Sunni population in Michigan. So a lot of these discussions, actually, it would be very good to have these type of discussions there as well to help build that harmony and understanding in the community. But I was sitting at a table of Sunni Arab men, and one of them was very passionate, and he was angry almost. And he says, I can't believe this. I heard somebody, one of the Shia Muslims, say that the tafsir of Amma yatasa'aluna 'an an-naba' al-'azim, they are asking about that grand matter, alladhi hum fihi mukhtalifun, that they differ about, that he says, I can't believe it, that's Ali. And so at the time, when I first heard it, I said, okay, I've never heard that tafsir from the Sunni side, but I know that there's a lot of khilaf. There's a lot of difference of opinion. So what I did when I went home, I started looking through our tafsir, and I found Sunni imams who said, yes, even though the majority said that's talking about Yawm al-Qiyamah, there is an opinion from amongst the Sunni ulama that it is because Ali was a grand matter, alladhi hum fihi mukhtalifun, because some people sided with his opposing side. And so he was a Nab al-Azim. So in that sense, I said, why would you get so emotional and so hurt of something that we even find in our own tradition? So my advice to everyone, and to myself included, is we have to build this harmony and we have to build this understanding, and then we can have this discussions on some of where the differences lies. But we really need that harmony, especially in this day and age where people, when we talk about Islamophobia and the attacks on Islam, it does not make a distinction between Sunnis and Shia Muslims. They look at Muslims all. So if we need to hold the ranks together, and I'm glad to be a part of this and to be connected to the ICZ community. I also heard that the Shia community do local moon sightings, and they go out to do the moon sightings. So I told Sayyid Hasnain, I said, well, let's please, I know some of the places here in the Bay Area because I also go with local moon sightings. I didn't know that. And so that I'm closer to you than many of my Sunni, the Sunni Muslim community members, because they go with calculations or with worldwide sightings. So I said, maybe we should coordinate, so that we could also have some of your community members at some of our moon sighting locations, and maybe some of us at your moon sighting locations. And it's a reminder of the unity that we all fast, we all pray, we all look for the same moon in Ramadan, we all read the same Quran. And if we focus on these commonalities, it will help us in building that harmony and understanding, so that when we get to the differences, it's two friends having a discussion. It's two brothers having a discussion. It's two sisters having a discussion. It's two family members having a discussion. It's two members from the same ummah, of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'll end on that. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak. And jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Well, thank you so much, Sheikh Rami. If I was there in person, I will kiss your forehead right now, because beautiful speech. So, I know it came from your heart. By the way, the words that you quoted about holding on to the rope, I quote this a lot. That's verse number 103 from chapter 3. So for those of you who want to actually read this more carefully, and then the following verses are also equally strong for those who want to differentiate or start to actually make differentiation between the two Muslim sects. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Dr. Rania Awaad, who is next. Dr. Rania Awaad, are you ready? Or I know there was a little bit of a rearrangement
That's okay. I can go, inshallah. I'm
okay, good.
Here. Just give me please a moment.
Okay.
Inshallah. Okay. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam ajma'in. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you again, mashallah. And thank you for the ICZ community for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be with Dr. Hadi Yassin. Mashallah, it's wonderful to be with you again, alhamdulillah. And in the work that we do jointly in the field of counseling, alhamdulillah, you know that this is my passion and definitely something I'm very excited to talk about always, alhamdulillah, and happy to find colleagues that are thinking along the same lines. Today, mashallah, as you probably saw, Sheikh Rami just presented before me. And the problem is when we're both invited to the same talk, we end up having the same talking points. So, mashallah, I was listening to him and thinking, he pretty much said everything I wanted to say. Alhamdulillah, Allah barik fi. But what I will say, and which is somewhat different from him, although I did hear him say something about his family being from Michigan. His family's from California. It's my family that's from Michigan, mashallah. Now his family too, of course. But having grown up in Michigan and having spent time specifically with the largest Arabic-speaking community in America, in which you have a very large population of both Sunni and Shia Muslims, you find a very interesting phenomenon happening. And it really is the difference between first generation, second generation, third generation, and probably onwards, inshallah. My parents' generation, you find that they were very much isolated. Even in one city, you have multiple masajid. Even those masajid are split by different ethnic groups. And even those ethnic groups are split by different, Sunnah Shia masajid. You get to the second generation, which I consider myself from, and you have more intermingling because the reality is we're all American Muslims. We're grown up mostly here and identify probably first before Muslim, I hope first, then American before we really identify with any of the other ethnicities. And certainly by the time you reach my children's generation and probably their children's children and children, these differences are going to be much, much less and not so much as important anymore. And the reason I bring that up is because we really need to look forward. And I think when we look forward to figure out what is the kind of Muslim community that we're building, not for ourselves, we won't be here that long. It's really them who are going to be here after us, and what kind of communities do we want for them? That's what we're really building here for. So Sheikh Rami mentioned going off to MSA in the college, and I reflect on how right now I'm at Stanford University and I spend a lot of times with the Muslim students on campus. I do a lot of the until they have a formal chaplain kind of person come through, I hold that position for the students. And in the counseling that I do and in the kind of the halakas that we hold, there's students from all walks of life and all backgrounds. And it's not important actually what exactly their exact differences of theology and difference of opinions. What's more important is actually the fact that we are a minority especially at Stanford, we're a very small Muslim group in a much, much larger majority. And standing together and being able to really figure out the very things that ail us is much more important than anything else, subhanAllah. I also reflect on how, subhanAllah, this, speaking of mental health, and I actually have it right next to me on my table because I was looking at it earlier, is the book that we just published earlier last year. And I'm going to hold it up since it's right next to me, on Islamophobia and psychiatry. And this is the first such book in which we were able to prove the direct effect of Islamophobia on the mental health of our communities and how it's so detrimental. And we don't make a distinction here because the reality is you look visibly Muslim, particularly the woman, and the stats here will read like this. It basically says 85% of Islamophobic hate attacks happen to Muslim women in hijab. You're a visible Muslim. It doesn't matter. No one's asking what background are you from. They're not asking how long have you been in this country or not. They're not asking, what's your education level? Are you a professor at Stanford or did you just arrive yesterday? Nobody's asking these questions. It's the mere fact that you're a visible Muslim that you get this attack. So what's more important than the differences here is definitely how we do need to stand together. The chapter that talks about children, which is, I know I'm kind of the bearer of bad news today, but it's important to talk about this. A very important study that happened that CARE did actually on children and school age children and bullying based on religious identifiers. So either girls in hijab, boys and girls with Muslim names, so on and so forth. 50% had experienced some amount of bullying just because they were Muslim. So as we send our kids, I know everyone's sheltered at home right now, mashallah, but when we had been sending our kids off to school and will again soon, you have a 1 in 2 chance that that's going to happen. It's going to very likely happen. And again, it doesn't matter whether that Ali, the little boy named Ali, comes from a Muslim Sunni household or Shia household. At the end of the day, he's going to be bullied potentially as well, just simply by name. So making our identity stronger and who we are and the pride in our Muslim identity is actually what's more important than anything else here. And really the message that we keep giving to the children that we want to raise in the next generations. And on college campuses, college students are really funny. We all remember this age of our life, right? Where we get very super passionate about every thing and we start pumping our fists about everything. And we think very, very, we're very idealistic in our thinking. And we want to build a utopia all around us. But what becomes more important is once you leave that bubble of the college life and you go into the quote unquote real world, that's really where the rubber hits the road and it makes a difference. And how much do we really intermingle together? How much do we really have friends? When you see the friends, when you have, like, for example, in the women's work that I do, like the women's halakas that we have, the Rahma Foundation that we have on Friday nights, it's an open door policy. Everybody and anybody is welcomed to come. And I always say, if my halakah has women in it from all backgrounds, and that means ethnic, it means theological, it means social economical, it means all different backgrounds, then this is a successful halakah because people are, and I have them do this every single Friday, they'll tell you, I have them turn to the right and say salam to their sister and turn to the left and say salam to their other sister and to the right of the front of them and back of them. And often people come in and out of religious spaces and they haven't even said salams to each other altogether or know their backgrounds. So this is really important to me that there is a very strong sense of unity because eventually that's what's going to help. And when we model that to the next generations, that's what's going to actually see us all the way through, inshallah ta'ala. So where I'm going to add to the hadith that Sheikh Rami said about the fear of the unknown, I'm going to add the psychological piece, that one of the most detrimental things that we do as human beings is that we fear the unknown. And you start to really build up something very, very big. I mean, think about the COVID situation. May Allah protect all of us and give all of our family members and children and elders protection from this virus. And anybody who's ill, we ask for shifa. And anybody who's actually succumbed and passed away, we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise them in the highest levels of Jannah. Ameen. You think about the COVID situation and why it is, especially us in the mental health field, people are having such a hard time right now. Those who already had anxiety or depression, it's really elevated. And those who never had these things feel them now. It's a very difficult time for so many people. And you think about why is that? Well, a big part of it is actually this concept of the fear of the unknown. We don't know if the virus is we're going to be susceptible to it. Are we going to get it? Are we going to transmit it? There's all this fear. You think, now take that kind of fear and put it towards the other person. If you grew up all your life not really knowing exactly what they believed and you had like little rumors and little tidbits of information, and then suddenly you're on campus together, right? And then later in life, maybe in the workplace together and later in the masjid together, and you don't really know what that person is all about, there is a fear of the unknown. So part of really making things better is demystifying all of these rumors and strange things that are said, like Sheikh Rami mentioned, all these stories of what is actually simple misunderstandings that makes very, very big problems. So at least in our field of mental health, we really try really hard to demystify a lot of this and take the fear of the unknown away from people, inshallah, because I really think that that's going to be the most important thing. The last story I'm going to share with you, inshallah, is a story of my own, one of my own dear mentees, somebody that I'm currently supervising right now, who comes from the Shia community. And even though my relationship with her is, she's a Stanford doctoral student, so I am actually I supervise her doctorate thesis and supervise her clinically. So it's a professional relationship, but because she is Muslim and I am Muslim and both women on campus, we have this wonderful relationship. And every so often she'll say, could I just ask you? And I say, okay, well, and so she's curious, like she wants to know what of the things that she does following the Shia tradition are similar to what I do and what's different. So it's a very beautiful conversation. Every so often this happens. And so one time we were talking, clinical work, patients and so on. And then she said, out of the blue, said, Dr. Rania, could I just ask, do you pray the qunut prayer, qunut dua in your prayer? MashaAllah. Question sort of came out of nowhere. And she said, do you know what the qunut is? And I said, in fact, I do. As a proud Shafi'i, alhamdulillah, I pray the qunut prayer at every fajr. And as do the Malikis, and the Hanafis do too, but theirs is in the witr prayer. And she was like, oh, mashallah. And then that just opened up the floodgate of questions. I can't tell you, it was probably 10 questions in a row. How about this, and this, and this, and this, and that? And it was the cutest thing, really, truly. It was very, very sweet. And I think it was so lovely because every time she asked one of those questions, I could just see like a relief, like a relief, you know, like there. And then at the end of it, she said, I can't believe how much more similar we are in our practices than different. And I think that was a really key takeaway. And I said to her, you know, in this field of counseling, especially where mental health is still somewhat, you know, stigmatized and somewhat taboo in our community, to break through as two Muslim hijabi women, right? I think the most important thing here is to realize that whoever we're working with, there are so many more similarities between us than differences. So inshallah, I will leave us with that story and to tell all the mothers today, a happy Mother's Day, mashallah, as every day, of course, is Mother's Day in Islam, alhamdulillah. And also, you know, a remembrance of this 17th day of Ramadan to be a Mubarak one. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala look at this night and look at the work we're doing here together and actually have qubul or acceptance for this kind of unity that we're trying to bring to the hearts. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And thank you, Dr. Rania Awaad, for that beautiful speech. In fact, one of the inspiration I have to start this work is one of the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is when he said, and anyone who brings two brothers together or their hearts together, they will live with me like this. And he crossed his fingers. So we are trying to bring two sects together. So I'm just hoping and praying that our deeds will be accepted by God Almighty. Before we go to Maulana Hadi Yassin, I just want to remind everyone, please do send your questions. We will open up for question and answers after Sheikh Hadi Yassin Sahab's speech. And the number to call or send or text your message is to this number that's displayed on your screen, is 209-221-6801. Hadi Yassin Sahab, please go ahead. I know you know, I always try to struggle, should I call you Maulana Sahab, Imam Sahab, because you don't like any of these titles. So please go ahead and
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى الطيبين الطاهرين. Brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Salam to you all. May Allah inshallah accept all your amal, praying, fasting inshallah. Special thank to our dear guests, Sheikh Nsour and Dr. Rania Awaad. May Allah inshallah bless you, definitely your household and the whole community inshallah. And thank you to Dr. Ejaz for Hasnain and all inshallah, everybody who's watching this. Alhamdulillah, we have the tawfiq. It's one of the barakat of Ramadan that we are together, alhamdulillah. And this is great program, unity that inshallah we have together. Sheikh Rami said that we have to start the discussions among the scholars. So we are neighbors and he never invited me to any lunch or any dinner, Dr. Ejaz. So we have to see what is the hukm of that, you know? So inshallah, I know maybe he wants to invite us during Ramadan for a lunch, but you know, since we're sheltering in place, so inshallah after Ramadan. But alhamdulillah, indeed it's a tawfiq to have them both, alhamdulillah, our dear guests. Also, I would say congratulations, we just passed the birthday anniversary of Imam Hassan bin Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. May Allah inshallah let us be among the true Muslimin, inshallah, follow Islam. Alhamdulillah, great speeches, great points mentioned, mashallah, about the importance of these programs and unity that we have. I would like to take a look at different aspect and side of this important cause that we should have and we have to promote it. It's not something that we have to do it because it's good to do it. It's not something that it's just recommended to do it. I want to look at it from spiritually it's mandatory to do it, to bring the unity among the different sides of Islam, specifically Shia and Sunni. It's mandatory to do that. Why? Because originally hifz and keeping the origin of Islam and the huwiyat of Islam and Muslims is wajib upon everyone, and that's the most important things, to keep the origin of Islam alive, healthy, and safe. This is something that it's more important than the life of the Prophet of Islam. It's more important than the life of the Imam or all Muslims. That's why we see that Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he goes to the war. He exposed himself, his life, to be killed in the war for the sake of what? For the sake of Islam, the origin of Islam, not the divisions in Islam. All Islam in one kalama wahida, just Islam to keep it safe, such as Ghazwa Badr, such as Uhud, that, for example, that happens when Muslims were defeated, the majority of Muslims just ran away. Rasulullah is alone with few only companion that they, keep him safe. So what happened here? It's more important. Ahlul Bayt, they go to war for the sake of what? For the sake of keeping Islam alive. So that's number one. Before we think about it, if you open Quran, it's first about Islam. We have to pay attention to this. As Quran says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, وَإِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً. This is one ummah, one deen, one ummah, and Allah says, وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاتَّقُونَ. And you're, as you heard, mashallah, you have one deen, one ummah, one God, one Lord you have, one prophet you have, one qibla you have. It's all one ummah. This is what makes you khayr, kuntum khayr ummah. You are the best of all ummah, the best of all, communities. Why? Because of this cause and because of this unity should be among. So that's number one, that what we're doing, inshallah, what we're promoting, it is something that it needs to be done. Again, it's not just necessarily must have mandatory things to do. We see in the Hikmah 317 of Nahj al-Balagha, this is what Ahlul Bayt, I want the Shia community to know that, this is what Ahlul Bayt, first and foremost, they wanted to keep Islam alive. Even from the Shia's perspective, that Amir al-Mu'minin, what happened to him, but him not doing anything is because to keep the origin of Islam, the actual Islam alive, not to bring division among Muslims. حكمة نجبة قال وقال له عليه السلام بعض اليهود, a Yahudi guy, a Jewish guy, came to him, to Imam عليه الصلاة والسلام, and then he told him what? He told him that ما دفنتم نبيكم حتى اختلفتم فيه إنما اختلف عن لا فيه. Came and says, you just buried your own prophet and you caused issue and problem among your prophet and stuff like that. So he wanted to bring a problem in Islam and to cause division among the Ummah of Islam. Amir al-Mu'minin told him that no, إنما اختلفنا عنه. What we had the issue here, it's about some recommendation, what he said after that. لا فيه, there's no issue in Rasulullah. What Imam Ali told him, ولكنكم ما جفت. Very interesting. ما جفت أرجلكم من البحر حتى قلتم لنبيكم اجعل لنا إلها كما لهم آلهة فقال إنكم قوم تجهلون. But you guys, Bani Israel, right after you left, the river Nile, you started causing issue and problem, and you told Musa to what? To put an idol for you guys to worship. So Imam Ali Sallallahu, first and foremost, he's defending Islam. He's not talking about himself. He's not talking about his other people on the other side, opponent or anyone. He's first talking about the origin of Islam. So that's number one, which is so important. And as Sheikh Rami said, when Islamophobia comes, when enemies come, the enemies of Muslims, they don't care about Shia or Sunni. They target the root. So what we have to do is to be al-mu'minu kayyis. We have to be smart. We have to understand the opposite side, what they're trying to do, and keep, as the ayah of Quran that you guys mentioned as well, that we have to wa'tasimu bihablillah. There is one rope. There are not two ropes. Wa'tasimu bihablillahi jami'an. All together, as you guys recited this ayah, all together hold this rope and don't be divided, right? That's another point here. But when we go to the detail of our beliefs, yes, as you mentioned, alhamdulillah, there are different opinion. In one household, you see that brothers and sisters and others, they have different opinion. As I have, mashallah, heard that one husband can be Maliki school of, Maliki madhab. Another one can be Shafi'i. So this is the beauty of Islam, that all together. The differences are there. It's not about being just one. But what is important here is that the enemies, they try to bring problem and issues in this ummah by causing tafraqa, division, and fight. This is actually a policy that they have, right? Tafraqa and fight. You bring tafraqa, what is happening in the Middle East, right? Amusing the people in the Middle East, but just fighting over something that, it's not supposed to be. And others are sitting and looking. So this is important. And then we see that some group of people, they're accusing another group of takfir and shaykh, na'uz billah. Oh, they are wrong. No, they're not Muslim. They're not Muslim. They are not Muslim. Quran says when it comes to Ahl al-Kitab, وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودِ لَيْسَتِ النَّصَارَى عَلَيْهِ شَيْءٍ. The Jews, they're saying that Christians, they're not standing on anything, they're wrong, nothing. وَقَالَتِ النَّصَارَى لَيْسَتِ الْيَهُودِ. And the Christians are saying the same thing to Nasara. Says, no, we are better than you guys, you're nothing, right? وَهُمْ يَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابِ. Interesting part. And they're reading their books, right? Their book. So when it comes to Muslim, they shouldn't be this way. The judge is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Internally, there are some differences, definitely, but commonalities are definitely way more than the differences, as we mentioned many things. But we should be smart here to understand what are the agenda behind this, to make sure we fight with it, we stand with it. So this unity is not something, it's not necessarily a symbol. It's something that it's within the origin of Islam that we have to look for it. When it comes to, again, reference from Quran to Musa and Harun. So Musa left, came back to the community. He saw that, oh my God, what happened? Bani Israel, what they did. And then he grabbed the beard of his brother Harun, and what you all heard about this. Then Harun says, لا تأخذ بلحيتي ولا برأسي. Don't take my beard on my head. إني خشيت أن تقول فرقت بين بني إسرائيل. What I was afraid of is that people say what? He made and he caused. I was afraid that you say he caused division among the ummah. I was afraid of that. So Quran is narrating it and is approving it. So what I'm saying is that whoever causes or caused division in the ummah is one of the worst things and sins ever happened. And the takfir comes, and this is wrong, that is wrong. And unfortunately, we see that not before, alhamdulillah, Shia and Sunni, all they were living with each other. No one accused another one with the blasphemy or anything, until we see that the teachings of Ibn Taymiyyah and Wahhabis are coming, and they're accusing the mainstream Muslims, not just Shia, mainstream Muslims, that if you don't believe in this thing, so you're mushrik. So as we heard, Amir al-Mu'minin as well said the same thing as Sheikh Ramio, he mentioned about the hadith that Amir al-Mu'minin, we have the similar hadith that he said that to Kumail, Ya Kumail, ma min harkatin wa anta fihi muhtajun ila ma'rifa. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to, any project, anything, you need ma'rifa, you need knowledge. When we go to the detail, when you read, when you study more and more and more, we understand and we see that this is sometimes a cause and the issue from the enemies to do these things. And we have to be, inshallah, smart. We have to know these things. We have to understand these things. And as much as possible, we educate our community about these things. This is the primary, this is the responsibilities of scholars, definitely. To act more upon these things, to be more together, because the unity starts with the scholars. The unity starts with authorities, that they be united first. They have to see each other more. They have to know each other more. They have to know the differences. I have to hear from Sheikh Rami in the communities of Ahl Sunnah, what's going on, what are the ideas, so we know how to help each other. He has to hear from me what's going on from for example, our neighbors, the Shia community, what they think. So we be more aware of this, because our intention, inshallah, is one, is about the atila kalima tawheed, is to help and inshallah make the Islam as one religion to be glorified, all, to make sure the people in the whole world to understand what is Islam and the beauty of that. Yes, there can be differences, there can be different ideas, different approaches, as long as it's not against the origin of Islam, alhamdulillah. So that's what we have to think about it. And then, inshallah, educating the community, being there, This is important that our communities, our Shia communities, see more of the Ahl Sunnah scholars. Alhamdulillah, you know, in our fundraising before, we invited some of the Ahl Sunnah scholars to come and do the fundraising for us, even at ICZ, mashallah, right? And I know in other Shia communities, they do the same thing. So our community should see more of them. We have to go, they have to see us, how we look like. We're all Muslim, mashallah, we're all together. Yeah, we might, you know, pray this way, they might, but the Qibla is the same. The content is the same. The Prophet is the same. The Quran is the same. So these are the important things. And I want to say this things, which is very important. Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he physically is not among us. Physically he's not among us. But all Muslim believes that he is among us. His soul is among us. He's observing with the idhn of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We believe even a father who passed away, he cares about his family, let alone the Prophet of Islam, right? Do not consider ayah Quran. Do not consider those people who are, you know, killed in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as amwat. They're not dead people. Bal ahya, they're alive. Who is better? Who is more mu'min? Who is better than Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? On top of all. So no one is better than him. If he even was physically among the ummah of Islam. Here's my question to all brothers and sisters from all different sides and sects in Islam. So if Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was alive today, let's say he was living in Medina or Qom or Mecca or Michigan or California, doesn't matter. What was he inviting people to? The major things that he was inviting people, and he was asking the ummah of Islam, what was he? More important than anything else, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. The important part of that is that first keep the origin of Islam, as Amir al-Mu'minin did. The Shia believes, okay, whatever happened, they took his right, okay, whatever. But why he was quiet? To keep the ummah of Islam together. So when the enemies come from different sides, from Rome, from Persia, from other sides, they can protect the ummah of Islam. As he participated, he helped the community of Islam as well. Therefore, inshallah, it's important for us not just once in a while to have this type of gathering together. No, it should start with friendship. This is my ideas. This is my beliefs, I think. It should start, the unity first should start with friendship. We should be friends, as we are, mashallah, in the society. We're neighbors. At the school we go together, mashallah. Dr. Awaad mentioned as well. The students, the teachers, the professors, employers, we're all together, mashallah. We see each other outside. Why, when it comes to the reality, the most important relationship between Ummah of Islam and Muslims is Islam. More important than anything else. So if that's the case, inshallah, first we have to bring the friendship among all Muslims, inshallah. If that becomes strong, no one and nothing can destroy the image of Islam. So this Islamophobia happened, and I always say, it's very interesting. I say that, yes, some extremists are doing it, but you know whose fault is it first? The majority of Muslims. Why? Because if we be together, if we advertise the true Islam, if Islam groups come, extremists come and they want to say, this is Islam, people of the world already say, no, we already saw the main Islam. We already know the true Islam. What is the true Islam, right? But when the enemies, they see there is divisions, mashallah, this has issue with that, that has issue with this, they said, oh, there's a crack here, let's, attack them from this side. So if we together, united ummah wahida, if we can introduce the true Islam to the whole world, then believe me, nothing can destroy the image of Islam. It's going to be safe ila yawm al-qiyamah, inshallah. Therefore, I believe, inshallah, this is the most important responsibilities that all and every single Muslims they have. If we hear something strange, Ya Allah, I heard Ahl Sunnah, they have this belief. Okay, let's study. Don't panic. Let's study, see what it is. Bottom line is that, okay, so we don't believe in that. Okay, bottom line. There's no point that we, shocked or have anxiety over this. Yes, okay, so. But the majority of things when you hear is that, okay, so we have the same thing probably as well, as you heard Ramio, mashallah, said as well. Therefore, inshallah, knowledge, knowledge is very important. Friendship, knowledge, studying, and being together will, inshallah, promote this important cause and can help us to be more active in this path. And believe me, Rasulullah, as the father of this ummah, the one who is in charge of this ummah, he will be happy. And because of his satisfaction, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be happy and satisfied with all of us, inshallah. Beautiful recommendations. We be together as much as possible for anything that is possible. The moon sighting, the other Islamic rituals that we might have, we can do it together. These are all the great causes. Seeing each other, being together more, inshallah, these are the things we have to do more, and we have to promote them as well. Among all groups, among our sisters, our brothers, our children, youth, mashallah, as we are proud to have MCC and ICZ's youth be together and seeing each other. It might be the first time many of this youth, they experience being together. They might have looked at each other strangely, oh my God, so you're Shia, you're Sunni. But this is the unfortunate part. Out of that masjid, they might be friends at the school, at work, in the street. But when they see each other in the masjid, they look at each other, oh my God, you look like, you're Sunni, so Sunni looks like they, or Shia looks like, this is the horrible part. So we don't see each other as brothers and sisters, but when it comes to what? Other activities, we are very good with each other. This is something we have to work on to bring this friendship, this unity, but the intention should be one thing. The intention should be, inshallah, ikhlas, mukhlasan lillah, sincerity for the sake of Allah, inshallah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give all of us this tawfiq, inshallah, to be active in this path with the barakat of sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Dr. Hadi Yassin Saab, for your beautiful speech and all the words of wisdom by all three speakers tonight. And I think Dr. Hadi Yassin as well as Dr. Awaad did make a reference to knowledge and having knowledge is power. This is a word that I would like to quote that I quote a lot during my interfaith programs, which is from chapter 49, verse number 13. O mankind, we created you from a single pair of men and women and made you into tribes and nations so you may get to know each other, right? So that's true for interfaith dialogue, but it's also equally true for intrafaith dialogue. And so when we started this conversation 2 years ago or so at NCIC, my issue was I've been involved with interfaith for many, many years. And the problem I saw was that a lot of our brothers and sisters, both from Sunni side and Shia side, had no problem reaching out to their Christians and Jews, brothers and sisters or cousins, or even Hindus and Sikhs, promoting interfaith dialogue. But when it comes to having a dialogue with your other Muslim brother or sister, we would hesitate. Like, no, this is a sensitive issue, brother. I brought up to one of these speakers saying, let's talk about the Sunni Shia unity. It's like, no, this is a very sensitive issue. And so I'm glad now we're talking it more openly, because without knowledge, nothing is possible. Knowledge is indeed power. So my question, and I'll wait for some of the question from the audience also. By the way, again, text your question to 209-221-6801. So my question to the panelists is that, why are we so open to interfaith dialogue but not to interfaith dialogue? In other words, what are some of the barriers and how do we best remove these barriers? This is an open question. Anyone wants to take up on it, or you can go all take turns.
Bismillah, Shaykh.
Okay, Sheikh Rami.
Oh, I was hoping, Maulana Yassin, you were going to take the question, but maybe you can build on what I said. Allahu Alam, I don't know. I was just, as you were reading the question or saying the statement, I was shaking my head because I said, it's very true. We're jumping at the opportunities to have interfaith dialogue, but not intra-faith dialogue as much as we should. In fact, especially when the proximity is so close, like, ICZ and MCC are, I think, just a few miles apart. So physically they're very close. And then, as I was using the example of the MSAs, and Dr. Rania was saying the MSAs on campus, we're going to be sharing these spaces. So why aren't these dialogues happening? But I think, Allahu Alam, and maybe Maulana Yassin and Hadi Yassin and also Dr. Rania can speak on the psychological aspect of this. But there's a saying in Jordan, which is Ibn Skafi Hafi, which means the child of the cobbler has no shoes. And in English, it's the cobbler's son has no shoes. So sometimes and I've seen it repeated in other cultures. Maybe there's in other cultures here a similar idea, but it's this idea of if we have something that we can do, we want to do for the outside community, and we're focusing on the outside community, but at home, just like the cobbler, he's fixing other people's shoes and having these other, going outside.
Mm-hmm.
He's not fixing the shoes of his own children. And so I think it's something in human nature. Again, that's just it's a saying from, it's a colloquial saying in various cultures. But I think that's part of it, that sometimes we're thinking outside the home more than inside the home. And this goes for even people's in their own individual houses. Sometimes we even during this COVID crisis, so a lot of people they stay in pajamas all day long. Well, if you go outside and you dress up for work, well, why don't you dress up inside for work and do things that you would do outside for your family? Are you doing things, you're very nice with your coworkers, but you don't have that same niceties with your family. I had a friend who actually left the corporate world because he said he found that he was nicer with his coworkers than he was with his children. And so sometimes we put on that face for our outside that we don't put on at home. And I think that this might be a situation of that we've put on that face of, we can have an open discussion, and we can discuss with people even when their aqidah is, as Maulana Yassin said, it's completely different. We're not even talking about the same Islam. We're talking, it's polytheism, maybe idolatry and so forth. And we can have that conversation, but why can't we have a conversation where the differences are just a few subtle differences? It's not in that original foundation. Allahu A'lam.
Hadi, Yassin, something you want to add?
Add a few points into this. I was thinking actually when Sheikh Rami was answering, I think it was not like this, Dr. Ejaz. So throughout the history, some people intentionally with different ideas or political ideas, they caused this issue. We know in different sides in this world still, in Iran, in Iraq, in other sites, Shia and Sunni are together. They're families. They are in one tribe, one family. They are together. There's no differences, no issue. Rather than just having a dialogue, the same family, cousins. A few of people came to me and says, "I'm the only Shia within the whole community, whole family. My whole family in the village, they're all Sunni. I'm the only Shia. So, and they're very nice with me, and everything is fine, right?" So we should see here why some people made it sensitive. Why some people, it was not sensitive like this that it is today. Some people came and says, only us, not you guys. So this is sensitive, specifically when it comes to the heads, to these scholars, right? Maybe the scholars of Christians and Muslims, they're not against each other. They're not doing takfir. Oh, you're definitely good. But when it comes to Islam, we're using the same code, the same Quran. So only us inside the family. Sometimes if we have issue with our friends outside, we'll become friends easier and better than having issue with our spouses, right? So we make it personal. So I think another reason is that some people made it, maybe unfortunately with those, they didn't have enough knowledge, or I don't want to say inshallah, not purposely. And of course the enemy is, they add into this issue as well, definitely.
Thank you so much. So my next question is, actually, before I go to the next question, keeping in line with the topic of unity, NCIC, we are promoting one common Eid, which has been my dream, that we'll have one common Eid in the Bay Area. So this coronavirus has actually been a blessing in disguise at times. So we are working on a common Eid khutbah that will be attended by 7 or 8 different speakers. It will be on Sunday, May 24th. And if it happens, if there are 2 Eids by calendar method and a moon sighting method, if they're different, then we may have a second program on May 25th. But for sure, we'll have one program on May 24th. We are still reaching out to some of the scholars and imams. The idea is that from about 9 a.m. to 12 noon, we'll have different like Eid khutbahs, about 15 minutes long. It primarily will be in English, but there will be some ethnic khutbahs as well, like in Arabic or Farsi in Urdu. So please, I'm inviting the entire MCC and service and ICZ community to be part of that as well. And we'll make the announcements and send the links to everyone involved. Coming back to the question, and again, this is a question for everyone, but let me start with Maulana Hadi Yassin Saab. So what myths do you think exist about the Shias or Shia history or practices? Maybe one myth that you would like to dispel tonight.
Good question. If I want to, I think it's a good question. If I want to choose one, I think it's about the Shia community or Shias worship. Who they worship? Do they worship imams? Why do they worship imams? That the other people, they think our view and beliefs towards imams. I have been multiple times asked this question from our Sunni brothers and sisters that who are imams? What are the positions? And again, because the whole differences in aqaid and beliefs starts from there, the topic of imam and imamah. What I would like to talk about this is that what Amir al-Mu'minin Imam Ali sallallahu he introduced himself in Nahj al-Balagha. He says, "Ana abdun min abida Muhammad." I'm one of the slaves, one of the servants of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No one, according to all Shia school of thought, no one can reach the position of Rasulullah. I'm not talking about the Risalat, that he's the prophet. Forget about this. In all aspects, in all directions, no one can reach that level. As Amir al-Mu'minin, he called himself Abdun min, beautiful, subhanallah, Abdun min Abid Muhammad, right? In his Nahj al-Balagha, the saying of Amir al-Mu'minin. So the point is here is that Shia believes that we need guardian after Rasulullah. The earth was not empty from the hujjat of Allah on the earth. From the time of Adam, all the way, that was the sunnah. All prophets, either the prophet or the successor of the prophet, such as Musa and Harun, they were in the community. So what they believe in, yes, the imams are actually Shia belief chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they need to be infallible. Why? For the same reason that the prophet should be infallible, so they won't add anything into the Islam. They don't add any personal things into Islam. But the first myth I see is that why and what is the reason Shia did this? And then if we study more, sometimes I've seen that, I don't know, out of lack of knowledge or actual purposely being told to some people that, oh, Shia are worshipping the Imam. Actually, we have hadith from Ahlul Bayt, we have hadith from Ali sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He cursed Ghali. Ghali are those people who believe in them, whatever that they are not actually. Imam Ali sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, two people broke my back. One of them are those people that are Ghali. And actually, he cursed them more than his enemies on the other side. He said, these people hurt me more because they're saying something that is not true. Na'udzu billah, that he is like this and like that, you know. Imam Ali said, he became shaheed in mihrab of masjid. So he's praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He called himself the student of Rasulullah, let alone when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's worshiping Allah. I want you, inshallah, everyone to go, and specifically, it really came to my mind, Ahlul Sunnah, brothers and sisters, we gave them some of the du'as from Ahlul Bayt because we want the khair for everyone. I think all of us, all Shia and Sunni, we should have the book Nahj al-Balagha in their house, Sahifa Sajjadi in their house. When you recite this hadith in Ramadan, Dua Abu Hamza Thamali, right? In Ramadan, it's a long dua, but I really, really encourage everyone to read this. Just read Dua Kumail of Amir al-Mu'minin, he taught the Kumail, right? Read the phrases of this dua that Amir al-Mu'minin says, Ilahi wa Rabbi man li ghayruk. And he has nothing, it's just that servant of you, right? It's nothing for Ali. If you take your blessings from Ali, nothing will be left for Ali, right? So I think this is the point. If we go to the text, if we read more, then we understand what the Shia believes in. And again, one God, Tawheed, Nubuwwah, these are definitely something that is on top. And then the details, if people do more research and understand, all this misunderstanding will be away and they don't have to have misunderstanding. So to the point that one of the Shia brothers came to me and says, I went to, because it's a good academic discussion, I look at it, I will say that. He said, I went to a masjid, Bay Area, unfortunately, and I prayed in the Ahlul Sunnah masjid. Many people came to us and says, you know, I'm closer to Ahlul Sunnah masjid. Can I go pray? Of course you can go. But it's not, you don't even have to question. So you can go join the Jama'ah with them. That's the thing. Our Maraja are saying that these are the myths that you mentioned about how Shia look at the Islam. Al-Maraj says that do not call Ahl Sunnah brothers. No. وَلَكِنْ أَنفُسَنَا. They're our nafs. We're the same. Why you call them brothers? Brothers are different. We're the same ummah, right? He said, I went to the masjid, I prayed. He said, I'm not sure. He said either the imam of the masjid came to him or someone else came to him and says, do not come to this masjid anymore. Don't come to this masjid. I don't want to see you in this masjid. And he was like, well, you told me that I can pray with them. What's going on? He says, they're not all. If someone came and said something, it doesn't mean that the whole communities are like this. That person, inshallah, for the benefit of doubt, he had the wrong idea. He might have made it personal, but don't think it's all of like this, right? So again, it goes back to knowledge, study, information. So we all be clear on that. Sorry, it took long.
Jazakallah. So, you know, the reverse question is coming to you, Sheikh Rami and Dr. Rania. What myths do exist about the Sunni aqaid or history or practices that you like to dispel? Maybe mention one or two that you think might exist in the minds of some of the Shia brothers and sisters.
Okay. Thank you. And you know, also before I mention just something that has come to my mind in answer to your question, I want to build on, you know, what Maulana Hadi Yassin said about that person praying in that masjid and being told by the imam, or maybe somebody in the masjid, you know, whoever it was, administration, the imam, that you know, to not pray. That's very, very unfortunate. And I hope, you know, these type of dialogues and also the NCIC, it works towards. We can't have that at all, because وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ, the masjids belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, you know, when I went to Qurtuba in Spain, and I went to what used to be the Jami' of Qurtuba, the Friday masjid of Qurtuba, and they've turned it into a church. In my mind, it's like, this is still a masjid. And I did 2 rak'ahs. This is the masajid, once a masjid, always a masjid. And so I hope that in the NCIC we can work to this, you know, that should be in terms of not only best practices, but that should be in we should not, nobody from the imam to the board to the average person should make anyone feel uncomfortable, let alone tell them that they can't pray. And, you know, and I think I've had this situation where, you know, because I pray with my hands at my side, I have had people come up to me, so I can feel like I know those situations where people come and say, you know, why are you praying with your hands at your side? And to me, my first, and I can have the ilmi discussion of why Imam Malik prayed with his hands at his side, but I say that's you don't have the right to do that. You know, if I come in and if somebody wants to come in from the Shia community with the turba, and I hope I'm saying that that right, but you know, the piece of to pray, they should have that right to do that. Nobody should, anyway. So I hope the NCIC, we can work through that to, you know, have all of the masajid in the Bay Area and make that as a role model for the rest of the U.S. If a Sunni prays in a Shia community masjid, you know, he feels welcome, he or she feels welcome, and vice versa. I think one of the things that I would like to dispel is really, and I don't know how much this might be a myth in the Shia community, but I have heard it a little bit, but it's the idea that the Sunnis sometimes reject Ahlul Bayt. And I think this comes down to where the love of Ahlul Bayt is there. The Sunnis and the Shia love Ahlul Bayt. But where the difference comes is, where do we derive our ahkam and our rulings? Whereas from the Shia community taking from the imams being from Ahlul Bayt, whereas the Sunnis taking from some imams, whether or not they were from Ahlul Bayt, as long as they, you know, they went through the process of ijtihad. But all of them, we all have immense love for Ahlul Bayt. To give you an example, Imam Malik in Medina, he used to, he gave a fatwa one time where one of the governors was forcing people to take bay'ah from him. And this was during the Abbasi period. And the Abbasids, of course, are from Ahlul Bayt. They're from the family of Abbas. And so this ruler, people would come to Imam Malik and say, did you, you know, is this bay'ah like binding upon us? And he said, he started narrating a hadith, la talaqa fi ighlaq. There's no divorce under compulsion. In other words, anything that you say or do under compulsions, marriage, divorce, buying, selling, or a bay'ah is not obligatory. So anyway, the governor heard about this, told him to stop giving the fatwa. And he said, I have to transfer the knowledge. I was asked and I have to respond. So he had him lashed. And Imam Malik said, in between each lash, because this person was Abbasi, he was from Ahlul Bayt, between each lash, he said, جَعَلْتُهُ فِي حِلْ. I forgave him. And the reason why he forgave him is because he said, I did not want to be on Yawm al-Qiyamah and somebody from Ahlul Bayt owes me a haqq. And so he, between each of the lashing that he got as a scholar, and then later when he went home, he saw in a dream the Prophet ﷺ was very, very happy for what he did for his family member. So, and then if you look into the tradition of the Sunnis, there's a lot, there's poems about Ahlul Bayt, there's celebrations about Ahlul Bayt. So there's a lot of love for Ahlul Bayt that we have. And I think that's a commonality that we share, and that maybe can also be a point of discussion. I sometimes, honestly, when I look for nasheeds about Ahlul Bayt, I listen to people who, munshideen, who are from the Shia community, also from the Sunni community, because they're both expressing the same love. And I once was in a house of a family in Morocco, and the man told me his wife one time, she was listening to a Shia channel on the satellite TV, and he said, "Why are you listening to this?" She said, "He said this is a Shia channel." She said, "I don't know. I can't tell the difference between Sunni and Shia." She said, "I just heard them doing these nasheed, love of Ahlul Bayt, and I wanted to listen to it." And Morocco has a very strong tradition of the love of Ahlul Bayt. So we will find in the Sunni communities love of Ahlul Bayt. Unfortunately, and this goes to what Maulana Hadi Yassin was saying, there were influences into the ummah that started removing things. And one of the things that was started removing was the recognition and the place of Ahlul Bayt in a lot of areas, like a concerted effort to remove them. So if people have inherited that as their culture or the tradition, even though they might be Sunnis, it's not reflective of the Sunni tradition. So some Sunnis I've seen, when you mention Ahlul Bayt, they'll say, "Oh, we don't know who the lineages are. We don't know who's from the lineage of the Rasul, or we're all from Ahlul Bayt," kind of making it the same. We're saying no. If we look at the Sunni tradition, if we look at the Quran, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. The Prophet Muhammad said, "I don't ask any reward for this, just that you love my family." So I think that would be one thing that I would say, that if you look actually at the tradition of the Sunnis, there's love and there's shauq for Ahlul Bayt from the past, and even for those that are living amongst us today. That in one of the hadith is mentioned, it says, my Ahlul Bayt, my itra, are like, and then there's of course the hadith of the itra, there's the hadith of the kiswa. There's a lot of hadith that we share together, when the Prophet ﷺ shrouded his family, the hadith of the kiswa and the hadith of the itra, the thaqalain, the two weighty things, the Quran and the itra. So we share a lot of these commonalities, and I think that just because we take from imams who are not from Ahlul Bayt doesn't mean that we reject Ahlul Bayt in the form of the love.
Thank you, Jazakallah. And so now we're coming towards the end of the program, and the next set of item is really what's next, and then the action items. Before we actually ask our panelists about their suggestion for the next action items, I'll also share some of my practices. So in the last several years, one of our practices is that sometimes I'm critical of my Shia brothers and sisters, is when we do our majalis in Muharram, we only invite our Shias, our brothers and sisters. So it's like, you're keeping the knowledge to yourself. So I started to actually, so just like most people, 60 to 70% of my friends, even now in the Bay Area, are Sunnis. So I invited them to a majlis in my house. And I started to so, as you probably have seen some of the clips where this guy was showing some passages in isolation to someone one in the red states, and said this is about the women and other maltreatment, and it's from the Quran. And they say, yeah, it is actually a backward book, na'uzubillah. But then he's actually closed the book and say, actually, this is actually from the Bible. So they were shocked. So during some of my programs, so a lot of the things that you mentioned, Sheikh Rami, a lot of these, I showed them from Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari, and their jaws dropped because they thought it was from a Shia book. And so just having that knowledge and sharing that knowledge, bringing them together. So one of my suggestions is, and I would like to have your opinion, is say during Muharram or during Ramadan even, if we bring scholars or speakers from each other side. So for example, ICZ has someone from MCC and service and vice versa, just talking about it during a common gathering, and how may we bring that about?
You're talking about to the commemoration of what happened in the 10th of Muharram in Karbala?
Yes, so it could be not just on the 10th of Muharram, but say during the entire month of Muharram or during Ramadan. So when you're talking about, say, the events in Karbala, so the suggestion is, what if you have, say, a Shia speaker at a Sunni mosque and vice versa, just so that we can exchange information and again, this is part of getting to know each other.
Yes, I think it's actually very good, and it's very good. Also, because the Sunnis also have a tradition of it's a day of sadness for the Sunnis, but there's also a tradition that this comes from the Hadith about a form of fasting and so forth. But even just explaining that, but understanding is, I think that, and also other topics as well would be a great way, to where instead of having a general topic that we focused on one thing and speakers from both sides. I think that's a great idea.
And so this is an open question. So what is one step that you would like our community to take to, again, getting to know each other and bringing them together, if you will? So one practical advice, and let's start from Maulana Hadi Yassin. So.
I think it's a great question, since MCC and ICZ are very close to each other. It makes it easier. The first step, I think, before anything else, if we can be present at each other's, centers, us go to them, they come to us, they're the same. And then let the community see each other. Let the community see Shia and Sunni scholars. They sit down next to each other. They tolerate each other. They are friends. They talk to each other. They invite each other outside. So that's the first thing that it starts. And nas ala dina mulukim, but they believe in whatever their ulama and their scholars, they say that. That's number one. Because the mainstream awam, they don't go to the details. They'll look at their, Maulana, they look at this and say, okay, so they're good with each other. So it's not as bad as I heard back in the country, right? At least it comes to their mind. So when he's going to be outside with the Shia or Sunni co-worker, they don't look at each other, oh my God, so something is wrong with you, right? That's number one. I think it's just go see each other more. Second, having more community activities together, I think. Family community, youth community, children community together, respecting each other, differences, of course. It doesn't mean that we become, in terms of aqaid and fiqh, one and the same. No, we respect the differences, but respecting those differences, we be each other, we see each other, we have some activities with each other, even praying with each other, why not? At least from the Shia Marajid are saying, yes, it's possible. So having this together, and then it goes to the third, more official aspect that, again, like I said, scholars be together more, have more dialogue, go through the details of what are the actions that they can take to bring the unity that Ummah of Islam needs. Again, we're talking about something that is beneficial for Islam, not for our heart. It's okay, so I think my masjid is going to be very famous if we do that. Whatever is good for the Ummah of Islam in our community, in our local area, the area, right? So whatever is good for the Islam, for the ikhlas, mukhlisan lillah, we do this. But I think that's the best thing we can do, see each other more activities. And then, of course, having this type of gathering, not only at ICZ, going to MCC or other masajid, doesn't matter.
Thank you so much. And then we are actually a little bit over. So if you could, Sheikh Rami, maybe briefly, just one step that you would advise to the community. Yeah,
I think the idea of two things. One is to have those gatherings, really, to where it doesn't always have to even be about talking about our differences. Even just sitting down and having a meal, getting together and breaking bread together and building that. There's a secret in having meals together. And I think that's one of the reasons why when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, came to Medina, he says, "At'imu ta'am." That was one of the first things, like feed people. So just sitting down together to have a meal together, and then also have the communities together, as Maulana Hadi Yassin said, the youth together, and bring people together. And then also I would maybe even suggest, suggested readings, like Maulana Hadi Yassin said, every house should have Nahjul Balagha and Sahifa Sajjadiyya. Alhamdulillah, I have both. In fact, the Nahj al-Balagha, I got it from my father. He bought it. He was a poet, and so he was also very, it's Balagha. It's Imam Ali was also, you know, one of the most baligh, eloquent of people, and so he had that in his house. So I have his copy of that, along with a commentary and the Sahif al-Sajjadiyya, a big version. I guess the big version is so that people can read it while, you know, from far away. But in any case, it's good to read from the books of each other's traditions. So maybe even have suggested readings. So if there's like a short book of Aqidah from the Sunnis that the Shia community could read, and vice versa, and then that way we can see. And actually during this talk, I was thinking to myself, I bet if I take a Sunni Aqidah book, all of the points, sometimes they listed out like 150 points, the majority we're going to line up. There are going to be some differences, but as long as we can show, like, look here, even numerically, we can show we have all of the same. And now if we want to at the time have the Aqidah discussion, we can, just so we get a better idea of, so what exactly do you believe here, and what exactly is your view here, and so forth. But that would be my suggesting. The communities, the gatherings, the speeches, as Maulana Hadi Yassin mentioned, the gatherings of food, and just have people come together, and then recommended reading lists from each other's community, from each other's traditions.
Well, thank you very much. And we actually are over time today. But again, in the end, I'd like to thank Sheikh Rami, Dr. Rania Awaad, and Maulana Hadi Yassin for being the panelists and, you know, sharing their wisdom with the rest of us. And with this, we conclude the program, and I'll turn it back to Brother Hasnain.
Jazakum al-khair, all of you. So now, basically, I would like to request Maulana Hadi Yassin to do a ikhtitam dua, so that we can conclude the program, because we almost over, and I think 27 minutes.
Inshallah. And I would like to ask Sheikh Rami, Nsour, or Dr. Awaad to do that, please. Sorry, our dear guest.
Okay, Dr. Awaad has stepped away for a moment, but I'm going to turn it back to you, Maulana Hadi Yassin.
Inshallah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq, an opportunity to be among the true Muslimin, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to be active in the path of tabligh of Islam, the true Islam, to everyone. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help the ummah of Islam, the community of Islam, be more united, be together, and inshallah be under his satisfaction and their amal and their actions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the khair hajata for the whole ummah of Islam, mu'minin and mu'minat. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, those who have difficulties during this time from the ummah of Islam, all around the corner of Islam, provide opportunities for their freedom. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala those who are sick, cure them all at this moment, and let us be able to help our Muslim communities, inshallah, those who passed away from the ummah of Islam, and inshallah reward and tabab from our actions to the soul, inshallah. Rahimallah and yaqra al-Fatiha ma as-salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.